The day my husband asked his two cousins to use me the way that ended it all, I'm Emma, and the story I'm going to tell is heavy on my soul. It's a tale that can draw criticism, yet captures my journey through love, temptation, and finally, salvation. Liam came into my life beneath the glistening dusk light of the cityscape. I was working as a barista at a small cafe tucked away in a busy corner when I first saw him, the new delivery driver, smiling brightly enough to chase away the gloomiest of clouds. Our eyes met, instantly connecting over the heady aroma of freshly ground coffee beans. Soon after, our relationship began, developing to the beat of the espresso machines and the well-known conversations of devoted customers. After 2 years, we were married in a modest ceremony surrounded by the warmth of family and close friends. We started our adventure together in a little flat with a view of the lush city park, full of hopes and ambitions and the pull of a bright future. Our relationship was built on trust and companionship. We shared everything, from our deepest fears to our highest aspirations. Liam was the kind of husband who noticed the little things that made me feel incredibly loved and concealed little notes for me to find. I really believed that our love was unbreakable, like a fortress unaffected by a storm. But as the years passed, small flaws that neither of us had the insight to mend began to appear in the foundation of our relationship. The progressive distancing. It began innocently enough, with the soft dripping of passion that sometimes casts a shadow over the comfort of familiarity. Liam had an insatiable desire to live, and this enthusiasm infused every aspect of our relationship. On the other hand, I often felt exhausted after long shifts at the cafe, my energy waning as the days blended together. Our own world started to fade. Liam's advances matched my weariness, and I sensed his growing frustration. Even with his best attempts at empathy, the distance grew between us every quiet evening. I would frequently pretend to be sick or lose myself in books in order to avoid dealing with the real problem. One evening, while we were comfortably seated on different sides of the couch, Liam timidly brought up the topic. "Emma," he said, "it feels as though an abyss is forming between us. Is there a way we can rekindle the flame?" A twinge of remorse shot through me as I looked into his sincere eyes. "I'm not sure, Liam. I feel like I'm always tired." He reached out to shake hands with me. "Perhaps we can explore new horizons together, find avenues to reignite our connection." His suggestion hovered there, a fragile optimism I wasn't ready to accept. I withdrew my hand slowly and muttered, "I just need a little more time." The conversation ended there, but the words remained unsaid, like an open sore. We both knew something had to change, but neither of us had the guts to take the initiative. An unconventional suggestion. A few weeks passed before Liam came up to me again, a look of resolve on his face. "I've been thinking about it," he hesitantly said. "There are methods couples employ to enhance their closeness." I was curious, so I asked, "What do you mean exactly?" He paused, carefully considering what to say. "Perhaps we might consider integrating certain accessories to enrich our intimacy." A blush slowly rose up my neck. "Are you truly serious?" "Yes," he said with sincerity. "I believe it could infuse an element of excitement and assist us in reconnecting." I drew back from the idea, embarrassed and outraged at the same time. "I don't understand why you're suggesting this. Do you think there's something wrong with me?" I said to myself. "Not in the slightest," he said with quick thinking. "My desire is solely for our mutual happiness." "Yeah, I don't need electronics to be happy," I shot back, getting up quickly. "Perhaps you should introspect on why you feel compelled to suggest them." And with that, I disappeared into our bedroom, leaving Liam all by himself. That night, I had trouble falling asleep since my mind was racing with opposing feelings. Part of me was insulted, and part of me wondered if what he had to say was true. Tentative moves forward. The days that followed were tense. Liam gave me room, and I couldn't help but think back on our conversation. Was my response unduly contemptuous? Was my pride getting in the way of our happiness? I approached Liam one afternoon with a sense of resolution. "May we converse?" With a glint of optimism in his eyes, he looked up. "Certainly." "I should have apologized for my earlier reply," I said. "Perhaps we might entertain your idea." His face lit up with a smile. "Truly?" I gave a nod of approval. "Yes, but let's proceed with caution." He agreed, and between us we arranged to see a classy store that sold night enhancements. I walked in and was immediately surrounded by a sophisticated yet welcoming atmosphere. My initial nervousness was relieved by the dim lighting and soothing music. We strolled around the exhibits, taking in everything from understated to cutting edge. I was drawn to something understated and unassuming, something that seemed approachable. Liam seems to be drawn to the more daring choices. He held up an elaborately crafted object and said, "What about this one?" I shook my head and laughed a little awkwardly. Let's not be hasty. Although there was a tinge of sadness in his expression, he accepted my hesitancy. In the end, we decided on a small number of things, a careful balancing act between our comfort zones. As we left the boutique with our purchases, I felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. This was new ground, but maybe this was the bridge that we needed to go across to get to the other side. The night of reconception. We opened a bottle of smooth wine that night to go with our examination of the newly discovered gems. My misgivings started to fade as the rich aroma filled the space and the old warmth surrounded us. We sat on the rug in the living room and with equal parts fascination and apprehension opened each item. Liam's eyes showed a gentle excitement, and his patience was steady. He soothed me, saying there was no urgency. I gave myself a soft smile. Thank you for understanding. Our conversation flowed with an amazing ease as the hours passed. We talked about the early days of our love, the impromptu adventures, the giggles, the passion that once filled our hearts. These memories warmed my heart and broke down the walls that had separated us. I said softly, "I've missed this terribly." "Likewise," he said, entwining his fingers with mine. We moved into the bedroom, where there was a renewed sense of intimacy in the air. Candlelight shed a golden glow, creating ethereal patterns on the walls. A calm assurance enveloped me. We started out slowly, becoming acquainted with the most basic of our purchases. Liam stayed focused, never losing sight of my comfort. Our initial uneasiness turned into true delight as our confidence grew. Just when things were getting close to breaking point, Liam pulled out one of the most ornate pieces, a gorgeously made piece that had scared me at first. "Should we give this a try?" he asked softly. There was a brief gap before I answered. "Yes, I believe I'm ready." The experience that followed exceeded my expectations. It strengthened our emotional bond in addition to bridging the physical gap. Our transparency and mutual trust sparked a long dormant spark, arousing unexpected desires. Over the next few weeks, our relationship blossomed again. The barriers that had divided us came down in favor of open communication and mutual respect. We explored each other's needs, had open conversations, and delighted in our mutual rediscovery. Still, this rebirth sparked strange currents in me. The thrill of our rekindled intimacy developed into a curiosity that made me feel both uneasy and curious. The personal upgrades we accepted sparked ideas and imaginations we had never dared to dream of. After dinner one night, cuddled up together, Liam proposed we watch a movie. He paused on an option that was more daring than our usual selections and gave me a sidelong glance. I asked, curious, "Are you certain about this?" "Just as long as you feel at ease," he promised. I nodded, and as the story progressed, I found myself entangled in a web of strong feelings and nuanced wants. The main characters explored passionate domains that connected with my developing inner self. As the credits played, we were surrounded by pensive silence. At last, Liam uttered some words. "What are your thoughts?" It was thought-provoking, I said. It offered a new lens through which to view certain aspects of desire. He nodded attentively. Art has a way of illuminating facets of ourselves we might otherwise overlook. His insight stuck with me. My inquisitiveness went beyond the boundaries of our partnership, inciting a restlessness I struggled to understand. Celebrations and allure. A noteworthy promotion came Liam's way a month later, thanks to good fortune. We were so happy that we threw a party at our house. Liam excitedly invited his loved ones to join him in his celebration. His cousins Noah and Ethan, who are brothers and remarkably similar in height and easy charm, were also present. Their presence demanded attention and brought a lively energy to the assembly. I had seen them occasionally at family gatherings, but we had never really connected. As the night went on, I was drawn into a discussion with Noah. His quick wit and keen intellect captivated me, and we laughed a lot together. Before long, Ethan was there, and the three of them became into a nice little trio of jokes and anecdotes. The subtle looks, the electrifying undercurrent that ran through our conversation, were too much for me to ignore. I felt a surge of attraction that was both thrilling and unsettling. I scolded myself inwardly and told Liam again how much I loved him. The party shrank to the four of us as visitors started to leave. After indulging in copious amounts of celebration drinks, Liam retired early, leaving me with his cousins. Noah said, "Should we help with the aftermath, with grace?" "I would be grateful for your assistance," I answered. Navigating the remains of the celebration together, the air was infused with a warmth that verged on intimacy. The boundaries between decency and temptation gradually became more hazy. The unchangeable instant. After putting away the last glass, we gathered in the living room's warm glow. A last glass of wine was poured by Ethan. To Liam's accomplishments, he raised his glass. And to fresh starts, I said, matching their glass with mine. Our conversation progressed, revealing nuances of our individual ideas and encounters. There was an unmistakable tension to the conviviality. The wine had relaxed my defenses, and I felt myself drawn toward an unsaid invitation. "Emma, you're really amazing," Ethan said, his eyes unblinking. It gave me a good feeling inside. "That's a generous compliment." Noah nodded, a similar expression in his eyes. "Liam is fortunate to have you by his side." Possibilities swelled the air, like a fine line waiting to be crossed. Caution murmured from reason, but a stronger impulse drove me on. It was against all logic that I found myself in Noah's arms in an instant. Not long after, Ethan touched her, setting off an inferno of feelings. As we gave in to a forbidden desire, the world grew smaller. The repercussions of violation, the breaking of day brought my actuality into sharp relief. I woke up feeling dazed and with a heavy heart from betrayal. The memories from the previous night came back with a ruthless clarity. Regret and panic took hold of me. Just a few rooms away, Liam dozed off, unaware of the adultery that had occurred. I had a deep sense of self-reproach. I disappeared into the quiet of the bathroom, the shame smeared on my reflection too strong for the cold water to wash away. My own eyes, a reflection of humiliation and despair, looked back. Liam came out, all smiles and lightness of spirit. "Good morning," he said in jest. Seems the celebration was quite the success. I forced myself to be normal, saying, "Yes, it was a memorable evening." He gave me a big hug. "Thank you for organizing everything. It meant a great deal." My emotions were getting the better of me, so I tried to distract myself by pretending to be making breakfast. "I'll put on some coffee." The days that followed were a whirl of agony. Every encounter was overshadowed by the immensity of my treachery. I avoided Liam's touching touches and wrapped myself in an air of coldness. Finally, Liam became concerned and came up to me saying, "Emma, have I done something to upset you? You've been so distant." Shrugging away from his sincere stare, I murmured, "It's nothing. Just feeling a bit overwhelmed." He lifted my chin softly. "You know you can share anything with me." Unbidden tears welled up. "I'm sorry, Liam. I don't know what's wrong with me." He hugged me tightly. "We'll navigate whatever this is together." His resolute assistance simply made my internal strife worse. I made the decision to find a method to make amends, even if it meant carrying my secret by myself. Looking for comfort and comprehending. In a desperate attempt to get direction, I went to a therapist. I unraveled the knotted strands of my perplexity and shame in the safety of her office. I begged, my grief palpable. What drove me to such a grievous mistake? Her eyes were empathetic as she looked at me. Often, unaddressed needs and suppressed emotions can manifest in self-destructive choices. "I fear I've irreparably damaged my marriage. Acknowledging the issue is the first step towards healing," she said. "The path forward involves understanding yourself and making conscious changes." When I started my self-examination path, I had to face some hard realities. I recognized patterns of self-sabotage, a fear of vulnerability, and a weakness in open communication. I made a sincere effort to repair our friendship, determined to heal the divide. I started sincere chats with Liam in which I expressed my hopes and fears. Even though I couldn't bring myself to acknowledge the adultery, I was determined to strengthen the emotional bond between us. We did things together to strengthen our relationship again, just small pleasures that kept us connected. In response, Liam's expression brightened and the shadows in his eyes disappeared. One evening, with a smile that stretched to his eyes, he said, "I'm grateful for this renewed closeness." "As am I repeated, really meaning what I said. Simultaneously, I broke off contact with Noah and Ethan, purposefully avoiding circumstances that could rekindle old transgressions. It was an essential move in keeping with my previously confirmed commitment, building on novel foundations. As the months went by, time turned into an ally and the jagged edges of regret began to soften. Once again, Liam and I developed a rhythm and enjoyed each other's company. Liam abruptly suggested a weekend getaway to a peaceful rural sanctuary. "We could benefit from a change of scenery," he said, his eyes optimistic. Accepting the chance, I nodded. The retreat's mindfulness and connection-focused agenda offered a calm environment for introspection and personal development. In the embrace of nature, I mustered the guts to go further into open dialogue. I gently brought up the matter one starry night. "Liam, there's been a heaviness I've been carrying." He looked at me with mild worry. "I'm listening." I haven't always been the partner you deserve. I've grappled with doubts and fears that I kept hidden. He gave my hand a comforting squeeze. We all have our burdens. What matters is how we move forward. His comprehension was a salve to my hurting spirit. While I couldn't bring myself to divulge the full scope of my violation, I felt a semblance of serenity returning, accepting rejuvenation. We brought the serenity of the retreat back into our everyday lives when we got home. There was more tolerance and sincere interest in our encounters. As I proceeded with my therapy, I made a commitment to self-improvement and the values of integrity and honesty. Our union turned into a safe refuge of respectful communication. Liam brought up a sensitive topic one calm evening when the sky was painted in shades of amber. "I've been thinking about our future," he said gravely. "Perhaps it's time we consider expanding our family." I became emotional and asked, "You mean?" With a hopeful smile on his lips, he nodded. "Yes, starting a family." A great sensation of appreciation and hope poured through me. I would love nothing more. We started this new chapter together, utilizing the knowledge from the past to cultivate a positive future. Redemptive lessons. When I think back on the trip, I see that the road to redemption is difficult and convoluted. It entails facing one's own shortcomings, accepting vulnerability, and making a sincere effort to change. The betrayal of trust served as a trigger for me to reevaluate my principles and my ideal self. By means of self-reflection and sincere endeavor, I managed to mend and strengthen my relationship with Liam. I discovered that forgiveness, of oneself as much as of others, is a powerful tool. It freed me from the bonds of guilt and made it possible for me to live in the now. To everyone going through comparable struggles, know that there is hope for redemption. It requires humility, honesty, and the guts to face hard realities. An attestation to fortitude. Our story is one of unwavering determination rather than faultless excellence. Liam and I are steadfast in our will to develop as a team as we continue to navigate the challenges of life. We have built a foundation based on openness and trust. Our richly textured life story, full of both happiness and sadness, has made us into companions who value every second spent together. My heart is so full of thankfulness as we wait for this new member of our family. We have reached a position of deep fulfillment and connection as a result of the difficult route we have traveled. I pass on the knowledge I've gained, not as onerous reminders, but rather as evidence of our resiliency and potential for growth. Our experience is a living example of the transformational power of love and forgiveness, as well as the endless possibilities that arise when we decide to fully embrace them. Conclusion. Broken hearts are painful, but they don't have to mean a relationship is over. Rebuilding and even strengthening the ties that bind us is feasible with steadfast commitment and a genuine will to mend. My narrative is one of awakenings and mistakes. It acts as a constant reminder of our flaws and our capacity for growth. This story should serve as a beacon of hope for those who are seeking atonement and as a monument to the human spirit that never gives up.